Our story begins on Tatooine as Padme Amidala is standing outside of the Lars homestead, looking out past the Tatooine twin suns. Anakin has been gone for many hours now, and Padme was worried sick about him. Owen and Beru were friendly enough, and Klieg was clearly glad to have some new company around, but she could barely even speak to them right now. Padme had never seen Anakin in a mood like the one that had taken him from the moisture farm. His determination was so strong, so consuming, it seemed almost destructive. She'd felt Anakin's power as he took off. It was an inner strength beyond anything she'd ever known. If his mother was indeed alive, and Padme believed that Shmi was, since Anakin had said so, Padme knew that no army would be strong enough to keep the young Jedi from her. She wouldn't sleep that night, rising often from her bed, pacing all around the compound. She wandered into the garage area, alone with her thoughts, soon finding C-3PO as she would just spend the night talking with the droid. And deep in the Junlin wastes, Shmi Skywalker was tied up inside of a Tusken hut. She wasn't seeing much, with her eyes that were caked with blood and swollen from the many beatings. She felt nothing but pain, but she survived by imagining her life so long ago, reliving those moments when she and Anakin had lived their lives as Watto's slaves. It was not an easy life, but she had her Annie with her. And over time, all those times staring up at the night sky, imagining him soaring across the galaxy, rescuing people, saving planets, and yet she'd always expected to see her Annie once more. But now, as it seemed that her life was near the end, Shmi's thoughts focused on the memories she had of Anakin, while at the same time, she reached out to him with her heart. He was always different with such feelings, always so attuned to that mysterious force that she could never understand. She needed to let her son recognize that through it all, through the missing years and the great distance between them, she had loved him unconditionally and thought of him constantly. Annie had always been her comfort. But now, just beyond the camp, Anakin Skywalker was arriving here, more determined than anyone in the entire galaxy. And in just a few short minutes, Anakin would cut a hole into Shmi's hut, feeling her suffering inside. He would look upon her beaten body as his legs were weakened beneath him. Anakin would quickly cut her free, gently lowering her down into his arms. He would whisper "Mom" 3 times softly, trying to see if she was still alive, but he could feel her. He knew she was alive. He could feel her in the Force. Anakin would cradle her head, and finally, Shmi's eyes opened. Anakin could see a thin smile of recognition coming to her beaten face. Anakin stumbled on the words, telling her that he is here. She's safe now. He's going to get her out of here. Shmi told Anakin that he looked so handsome, and she seemed to be in a different place than Anakin, a safer place. She said that she knew he would come back. She's so proud of him. She's missed him so much. And now, she is complete. And her head would fall back as she looked straight up. Anakin would see the light leave her eyes. He could hardly breathe. She couldn't be gone. She just couldn't. He'd come all this way. He pulled her back again, staring into her eyes, silently pleading with her to answer him. Anakin didn't know what to do. He sat motionless, replaying all of the recent events of his life in his head. He should have never left her here in the first place. He should never have let Qui-Gon take him away from Tatooine without bringing his mother along. He should never have let Obi-Wan stop him from coming for so long. He had dreams. He knew she was in danger. He did nothing. She said she was proud of him, but how could he deserve her pride if he could not even save her? He wanted to tell his mom all about his Jedi training, all the good work he'd already done, and most of all about Padme. Now what was he going to do? The minutes would slip by, and Anakin eventually remembered where he was. And now the only purpose that Anakin could fathom was of the rage building inside of him, an anger at losing someone he did not want to give up. Some small part of him would warn him not to give in to that anger. It warned that such emotions were of the dark side. He knew he should get up and leave. And yet, his lightsaber was calling to him. Elsewhere, though, in a realm beyond the physical limitations of the galaxy, Qui-Gon Jinn would have an awakening as Shmi Skywalker died, and Anakin began to feel the rage living in him. Since his death, Qui-Gon has still been alive in the Force, but his training to become a true Force spirit with the ability to manifest a body and truly speak to the Jedi was not yet complete. He could make his presence felt, and through the years, He has gone to Obi-Wan whenever the young Jedi has felt overwhelmed in his training of Skywalker, just allowing him to feel peace and confidence. He's gone to Anakin whenever the boy has felt alone, reminding him of his mother, of himself, and of Obi-Wan, trying to give Anakin just a bit of peace through the Force. One time on Ilum, where the Force is strong, when retrieving Anakin's lightsaber crystal, Qui-Gon was able to manifest his spirit for only the briefest moment. And although Obi-Wan thought he was just seeing things, it did give him great comfort. It wasn't until this very moment, with Anakin suffering, where Qui-Gon could feel the true power of his abilities as a Force ghost. It was unlike anything he's ever felt before, as he moved through space and time. He knew, if only for the briefest amount of time, he would be able to speak out. He saw an opening to call out to Anakin as he began to rise in the Tusken hut. He would see Yoda meditating on Coruscant. Perhaps he could bridge their minds, try to stop Anakin from acting on these feelings. No, that was not the answer. There was another way. In this Force netherworld, every being who died in the galaxy became a part of the living Force, as their spirit was sent away, almost like a constant river of life. And now Qui-Gon could see Shmi Skywalker's spirit joining this river, but he knew what must be done. Shmi was chosen long ago to be the mother of the Chosen One, and Qui-Gon understood that his purpose has come to an end here and now. He would reach out, touching the spirit of Shmi, and sending all of his energy into the Force, into her spirit. For a brief moment, the two of them saw each other in the living Force. Shmi would touch Qui-Gon's cheek, thanking him for saving her son from Tatooine. Qui-Gon smiled at her, saying it was her turn to now be with him, and he passed his energy as a living spirit onto her. Qui-Gon would become one with the living Force, and Shmi would feel her own spirit come to life. She would soon find herself in a world beyond worlds. The Force that lived inside of Anakin now lived inside of her, and as she felt it, she began to feel the rage beyond anything she ever knew. She could feel Anakin. Back on Tatooine, in the real galaxy, Anakin would finally cut his way out of the hut. He would slice right through the two guards sitting closest to the doorway. He looked beyond them, spotting a Tusken woman to the side, in front of another tent, carrying a pail of dirty water. And he saw a Tusken child in the shadows of another nearby hut, staring at him with a deeply fearful expression. And then, Anakin was moving, hardly aware of his actions. He intended to kill every single one of these monsters, not just the men. You get it. But as Anakin lifted his blade, he saw something beyond the woman and the child that made him suddenly stop in disbelief. A figure was forming from nothing, a figure that Anakin recognized. It was his mother, appearing back into this world in a light blue, translucent light. She smiled at Anakin. She pleaded with him to go. Turn around. Let go of this anger, this hatred, and the two of them can talk together, but only in the light. Anakin felt a tear rolling down his cheek, and a second later, the child that was just staring at Anakin with fear ran at him with bravery, stabbing Anakin right in the side with his spear. The Tusken child was trembling. Anakin fell to a knee, blood spilling out of him. The child lifted the spear again, and Anakin just tossed the child away with the Force. He crashed into the hut, alive but out of the way. Anakin looked up, the stab wound hurting terribly. His mother was still there, telling him to go once more. Get out of here while he can. Anakin used the Force to numb the pain, and he would stumble out of the camp as Tuskens chased after him, screaming in a language he didn't understand. Finally, Anakin would roll onto the speeder that he brought here, kicking it up to full speed, deliriously blasting off towards the Lars home. The trip back would be many hours. Anakin didn't think he was going to make it, but he just let the Force guide his movements as he would go into a sort of trance, finding his mother in the Force. And so, as Anakin weaved through the sand, half awake, he would get to truly speak to his mother. It was everything he's dreamt of since the day he left her. Shmi would tell Anakin all about her new life with the Lars, how she loved them, how she's been longing to see him again, staring into the stars, imagining his life as a Jedi. And Anakin would tell Shmi all about his Jedi life, his training under Obi-Wan, how the two of them bickered and argued all the time, and yet Anakin still loved Obi-Wan like they were family. Anakin told her all about his many missions with Obi-Wan to Ilum, Mon Cala, Kashyyyk, all sorts of worlds he couldn't even have imagined as a kid. And soon, Anakin would tell his mother all about Padme. She was the most beautiful, kind, inspiring person that he's ever met. Her presence alone was suffocating. Shmi remembered meeting her for a short time on Tatooine when Anakin left with Qui-Gon, and she quite enjoyed this conversation. Time was flying by, and by a miracle of the Force, Anakin would arrive back at the Lars home. As he pulled up, he would say goodbye to his mother, thanking her for pulling him out of the dark, and Anakin would collapse over the side of the speeder, falling to the sand as the blood was soaking out of his patched-up robes. Padme and the Lars family ran outside, and they immediately got to work on fixing him up. And as Anakin was unconscious, being taken to a nearby medical facility, Obi-Wan Kenobi would send out a call for help from Geonosis. Anakin and Padme would never receive the message, but the Jedi Council and Senate certainly would. Obi-Wan was on Geonosis, soon fighting the Acklay, the Reek, and the Nexu all at once, cursing himself for getting into this situation without Anakin. After a long fight, the Nexu would scratch across his back, the Acklay would slam a claw right into his foot, Obi-Wan screamed out both times, and then the Reek would crash right into Obi-Wan. He found himself rolling hard across the sand. He knew it may be the end. But this time, the Jedi would not waste time hiding in the crowd and dramatically sneaking up on Dooku. They would just descend from the Republic capital ship all at once, dropping down into the arena to surround Obi-Wan. The beasts were quickly killed, and Windu would help Kenobi to his feet as a transport ship would carry him away, and the Clone Wars would get underway as Yoda arrived with the clone reinforcements. Dooku would evacuate the planet, taking a speeder to the distant hangar, and Yoda would quickly pursue his former Padawan. Yoda knew the facts of this war, and as much as it pained him to admit, he knew his former Padawan had turned to the dark side. There was a way to effectively end this war much more quickly, and Yoda would arrive in the distant hangar just as Dooku was attempting to board his escape shuttle, and Yoda would use the Force to shut the door of the ship, forcing Dooku to turn and face him. Just the two of them. There was no Skywalker or Kenobi for Dooku to use as an eventual distraction. This would be a battle to the end. And with a burst of sheer power, Yoda flew forward, blade igniting midair. Dooku blocked each immediate strike, fueled by the power of the dark side of the Force. But just as Dooku was about to launch a counter, Yoda was gone, leaping high, flipping, landing right behind Dooku, striking hard once more. Dooku had to reverse his grip, stabbing out behind him, intercepting the blow. He would let go of his weapon altogether, tossing it just a bit, spinning around and catching it before it even had a chance to disengage from Yoda's blade. With a growl of rage, Dooku reached even more deeply into the Force, letting it flow through him. His fighting style was one based on balance, on the back and forth charges, thrusts, sudden retreats, and now he came at Yoda with a series of stabs, ending with a perfect swipe right for Yoda's legs. But Yoda, as if in complete anticipation of the movement, would drop to the ground. The Count had already retracted the missed thrust and began a second stab, this time down low. But Yoda anticipated that as well, going right back up behind the blade. And in his rage, when his stab missed yet again, Dooku reverted to a slashing attack. Yoda's green blade caught the blow, holding the red lightsaber, locking the two of them in a contest of strength, both physical and of the Force. Yoda told Dooku he has fought well, but it is not enough, and Yoda would drop his blade low, swiping up to cut through Dooku's wrists, and then leaping right through to cut through his neck, all in the same movement. Dooku's head dropped to the floor, and Yoda took a moment to mourn for the life of his old Padawan and friend. He considered it a merciful act to eliminate the darkness from someone. And Yoda would find a small holodisc in Dooku's robes, a disc of a project titled the Death Star, a disc containing construction plans that Yoda would destroy, ensuring the terrible project could never be created. The Clone Wars would begin, and although the Jedi suffered a great many losses, the head of the Separatist snake would be destroyed, or so the Jedi had thought. He and the others would leave Geonosis. The Separatist armies would spread into the galaxy, and they would be commanded solely by General Grievous, taking orders from the mysterious Lord Sidious. And it would take 3 full days until Anakin Skywalker would wake up inside of a Mos Espa medical facility. R2 whirled with excitement. Anakin sat up out of a Bacta tank, finding Padme sleeping on a chair nearby, as she also woke up with excitement. Anakin's stab wound was fully healed, and after remembering everything that happened, Padme would tell Anakin of the recent galactic news. The Clone Wars have begun on Geonosis, but Dooku died in the first battle. And before long, Anakin and Padme would reunite with the Jedi and the Senate. Anakin would find Obi-Wan in the Jedi Temple medical facility, and both of them would look at each other's injuries before saying they can never be separated again with a laugh. The war would get underway. The Jedi were well aware of the Sith Lord called Darth Sidious because of what Dooku told Obi-Wan on Geonosis, and so the Jedi Council would put nearly all of their efforts into locating the true identity of this Dark Lord, while many of the younger Masters and Knights like Anakin were in the heart of battle. But as the days and the weeks began to drag on, the Separatists were quickly losing a lot of their morale that had been built up. Dooku was an inspiration to them. He was charismatic, strong, he shared their belief that the Republic was broken, and for a while, the Separatists had used him as a martyr to fight harder. But it quickly became obvious that he was a necessary leader. Grievous was absurdly powerful. He was an elite general and commander of the droid armies, but the Separatist Senate resented him for his brutality and inability to work with real political strategies and diplomacies. The Republic quickly took an advantage in the war, and Anakin would quickly find himself shifting his own strategy. After Tatooine, when his mother became one with the Force mysteriously, she would come to Anakin quite often, helping him with his emotions in the heat of war. She would encourage Anakin to speak to Padme, to help find a true, peaceful end to the war. Anakin would work with the Council to begin pulling the Jedi out of the fighting, having them be more of a peacekeeping unit that provides aid to the worlds ravaged by battles between the clones and droids. The Council would meditate on this, and they would soon listen to Anakin, deciding that the best way to draw out the Sith Lord is by ending the war with negotiation rather than bloodshed. And without Dooku, the Separatists and Republic senators could truly see a way out of this. It would take just 1 year of war before the Jedi would trace Sidious to Palpatine's office. The Separatists had become sloppy with Dooku. A communications mechno chair was captured, alongside Newt Gunray, in a battle over Cato Nemoidia. The Jedi would find that this chair was designed by the Limerge Company, and that company had one building on Coruscant, deep in the industrial sector. And upon infiltrating the building, the Jedi would trace a trail of underground tunnels from the building all the way to Palpatine's office, using clone technology to trace the footsteps. Windu, Yoda, Plo Koon, and Kit Fisto would be the 4 Jedi who went to arrest Palpatine. Anakin knew of the mission, but by this point his relationship with Palpatine was reduced to basically ash. Because he had his mother, he had Padme, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan, there was no hole in Anakin's life for Palpatine to fill. And so as Darth Sidious was struck down by the Jedi, Anakin was meditating in the temple with Ahsoka, as she was introducing his young Padawan to his mother through the Force. The temple had been locked down by Obi-Wan, but there was no real danger. The Sith had been exterminated. The Separatist army would unravel, as the Senate negotiated a peace deal with the Separatist Senate, allowing them to secede, as the Republic was exposed for their corrupt leadership. Grievous was quickly destroyed, and the secession deal would call for the Jedi to leave the Republic, becoming peacekeepers for both the Separatists and the Republic governments, along with the wider galaxy that needed them. This was exactly what the Order needed, as it moved into a new era. Anakin could not be more pleased with everything, and when it was over, he would go back to Tatooine with Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Padme. Anakin had grown quite fond of the world, as it was where everything had changed for him. Padme, C-3PO, and R2-D2 would bring along a ton of food from Coruscant, secretly taken from a Senate ballroom celebration, and the group would enjoy a feast with the Lars family, as Anakin would hear stories about his mother and the family. And when night came along, Anakin was sitting on a small ridge with a campfire, watching the twin suns set in the distance. He grabbed a handful of sand and just let it trickle through his fingers, realizing he does not hate it like he once did. He would speak with his mother for a while, telling her how much she's meant in helping him find the light. And soon Shmi would say goodbye to Anakin. She will always be around, but it is time that he embraces those around him that are living. A joyful tear would roll down Anakin's cheek, and soon Padme would sit by him, wiping it away, as they were joined by Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and the droids, enjoying a perfect night before returning to their duties in a newly peaceful galaxy that would be maintained by them. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. This was more of a wholesome one. I enjoyed it a lot. A lot of inspiration from the Attack of the Clones novelization, which, you know, I've used the Revenge of the Sith novelization probably 300, 400, 600, 700 times. Not really, but I mean, the Revenge of the Sith novelization, it's like huge for this. I used it a lot. Who cares? Anyways, the Attack of the Clones one, it's not as good, it's not as detailed, but they really dive deep into the Shmi Skywalker, just part of it all. So I enjoyed that. So much more detail into Anakin and his mother's relationship, in my opinion. So yeah, I wanted to really center in on that and use it as inspiration. And I really enjoyed this story. Qui-Gon, I kind of, made up my own lore about Qui-Gon being able to like transfer his presence into Shmi, but like Shmi, Mother, the chosen one, she was chosen by the Force, basically. So like, I don't know. It was fun. It made sense to me. And yeah, overall, I enjoyed the video. Hope you did as well. Let me know. Leave a like, subscribe, and of course, I will see you in the next video.